really crazy things that are going on with major banks right now that you need to know about.
But we begin this morning with the second biggest bank collapse in U.S. history.
Silicon Valley Bank, the nation's 16th largest bank, was shut down by the FDIC on Friday.
Meanwhile, Signature Bank marks the third largest bank failure in U.S. history.
Wells Fargo, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley collectively lost more than $50 billion in market value in one day.
U.S. banks have lost over $100 billion in stock market value over the past 2 days.
Don't worry, I'm about to give you all the details and tell you everything you need to know about what's going on and what you should be doing right now to protect your money. What's up, guys? This is Monique and welcome back to the channel. I am back with the news that you can use. Probably not what you want to hear, but it's what you need to know. But before we get into it, if you are new here, hello, bonjour, hola, aloha, konnichiwa, wagwan, shalom, assalamu alaikum, jambo, namaste. There were some major bank failures that recently happened. In fact, it was the second largest bank failure in history. And in case you don't know what a bank failure is basically when a bank do not have enough money to pay the customers what they owe them, and they have to close their doors. And that's what ended up happening over there at Silicon Valley Bank. And honestly, this can happen at any bank. So when it comes to banks, and I've talked about this many times before, but we have to talk about this part again so that we can understand what's really going on right now with these banks. So banks operate on what is called a fractional reserve banking system. And what that means is when a customer comes and deposits money into the bank is only required to keep a certain amount of that deposit on reserve or available or in the bank, however you want to say it. So let me paint this picture clearly for you. So basically, if you go and deposit $100 in the bank and the reserve is set at 20%, then the bank is only required to keep $20 of your deposit on reserve. So what happens with the rest of your money? They basically take that and they invest it, and then they make money off of the interest from investing your money.
What?
Now, in the United States, the Federal Reserve is who sets the reserve amount that banks have to keep per deposit. And as of 2021, the reserve requirement for most deposits is actually 0%, which means that the bank is not required to keep any of the money in the bank that you deposit. And I'm sure some of you may be wondering, well, how in the world is that possible if whenever I go to the ATM, I am able to take my money out of the bank? They use many different ways to make sure they have enough money on hand to meet the demands of the customers. So now that we understand that, we can take a look at this major bank failure, and I'm going to make sure I break this down in a simple and plain way again because I want to make sure you understand this, y'all. So over the pandemic, banks saw a huge increase in the amount of deposits that they had. This bank received billions in deposits from investments that were being made into the tech startup companies that banked with them. So you know I told you what banks do with your deposits. And so this bank took the deposits that it received and it went and it invested it into government-backed securities and bonds. And I believe it was over 100 billion in deposits that it invested. And government bonds are usually pretty safe investments, but because of all of the interest rate increases that the Federal Reserve had been making lately, the value of that deposit that Silicon Valley Bank made started to decrease, and I'm talking a lot. So when customers came knocking on the bank's door looking for their money, the bank was not able to come up with all of the money that they were requesting. So they ended up having to sell some of the investments that they made, the ones that they could sell. And in doing so, it caused them to take a big loss of about $2 billion. And that's when they reached out to investors and tried to raise their money, but those cries fell on deaf ears. But the ears of the customers started ringing when they heard about this, and they started running right to the bank to withdraw their money. In one day, there was about $42 billion of withdrawals initiated. The bank ended up having a negative cash balance of $958 million.
Start selling online with Shopify, the e-commerce platform that's trusted by millions of businesses worldwide.
So after all of that, they became unable to pay its obligations to its customers and they had to close their doors. And it was placed in the hands of the FDIC, but on that day, many people were left out in the cold.
A line of about 50 people deep, waiting in the rain, trying to withdraw their money. They got no money.
Now, I'm sure many of you may be like, well, they should be fined because they should be FDIC insured of up to $250,000. Well, let me tell you something else about this bank. According to Business Insider, about 88% of the deposits in this bank are uninsured, which means it will be their loss and the FDIC's insurance would not cover it. Now, luckily, the FDIC agreed to bail these customers out and they took the limits off of the insurance and they gave everyone their money back. But this may not always be the case, y'all. That's why we have to do some things to make sure we protect ourselves. So the first thing you want to make sure you do before you ever go and put a dollar into anybody's bank is to make sure your deposit will be FDIC insured. Because if anything happens again, like what is going on right now, and the bank has to close its doors, you will lose your money if you are not insured. And it does not matter how hard you cry or how hard you knock on the door of that bank, you will not get that money back. So this is something that you want to figure out even now, because 85% of Citigroup's deposits aren't insured, 59% of JP Morgan's not insured, 33% of Bank of America's deposits are uninsured. The U.S. banks actually have over $1 trillion of deposits that are not insured. Now, the majority of Americans are covered by FDIC insurance, but it is still something that you should be certain of. And if you already have your money in the bank, you can make sure that it is insured by looking at the bottom of your bank statement. You should see something about FDIC insurance on there. You can also check their website, or if push come to shove, you could just call your bank and ask them. But that should always be the first question before you go and open an account. And many people may feel like this stuff is common sense, but you have to realize what's common to you may not be common to others. Everybody did not receive the same education about these things, and so that's why I want to bring this stuff to y'all, break it down so we all on one accord. Now, what happened at Silicon Valley Bank is not likely to happen at your bank, but that does not mean it is not possible. It can happen. And then on top of Silicon Valley Bank, after all of that went on with them, the government actually seized another bank called Signature Bank. I'm not going to even get into that one, but just know there's a lot going on with banks right now. But another thing that you can do to protect yourself, one of the best things that you can do is make sure you put your money into several different accounts. Spread that thing out across multiple accounts. This will help if a bank fails, if a bank gets hacked, if there's some kind of security reasons, or even if the system shuts down. And in many of these situations, like a bank failure, even though you may be covered with the FDIC insurance, it is still a process. It's not like you can give them a call that day and be like, where my money at? So that's why having another account with your money in it that you can access is good, because life still goes on, bills are still due, you still have to eat, you still need gas. So that's why you don't want all of your money in one place. And another thing, it's always good to have cash on hand, because again, you want access to your funds in case of emergencies like a natural disaster. And believe me, I've been a part of a huge disaster. I am from New Orleans. I experienced Katrina. Or power outages could happen and ATMs or other banking services will become unavailable. If a banking crisis happens or an economic collapse, it is very possible that the bank can freeze your money or limit the access you have to your money. And having cash on hand can be a crucial lifeline. And again, this stuff is not to scare you guys. This is stuff that we need to be aware of, stuff that we need to consider, and we just need to be prepared for. I know another thing that people are doing to keep their money safe is putting it into different assets. Depending on how much money you have available, you can actually invest into real estate.
I've been telling you guys now for as many years, get your money out of the bank and then get your money into a real asset. Cash is just at risk. It's liquid. It can be moved. It can be erased. It can be disappeared. It can be lost in the case of the Silicon Valley Bank. That's why I take my cash and I move it to a real asset. Can't move the building, the tenants, the cash flow. Invest in real estate, folks. Even in bad cycles, real estate will be there for the cash flow, the depreciation, the appreciation, and the long-term capital protection.
You can invest in certain stocks, but again, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you ways that a lot of people ensure that their money is safe. But basically, spreading your money across different assets helps to decrease your chance of risk. So I hope that this helped you out today. If you have not liked the video yet, please like it for me. It really helps me out. Other than that, I thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we are out. Peace.